Today is another episode of Ollie and Georgia Investigate.
Right. What we're going to do today is investigate, but don't say what it is yet. Investigate Poppy's favourite topic. Now, when I count three, because I want to see if you guys know what my favourite topic is, right? When I count three, without talking to each other, I want you to both say what you think my favourite topic is. So today Ollie and Georgia investigates Poppy's favourite topic, which is 1, 2, 3...
UFOs!
Oh my God! How is that, Meryl?
Well trained.
They got it! Okay, now, so the topic is UFOs. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some information about UFOs, people's stories about that, well, you know, the fact that they've seen them or filmed them or, you know, whatever.
Which actually is people faking videos?
Well, that's the thing, you see. Now, what you have to do is decide whether what you see when I show it to you is most likely true and they're telling the truth. That's one possibility. The other one is it's most likely untrue and they're faking it and whatever. And the third possibility is you really can't say for sure one way or the other yet. You'd probably need to find out more about it before you could say whether you think it's most likely true or most likely untrue. Now, I've selected examples that I think fall into all of those three categories. So, but I'm not going to tell you until you tell me whether I think that what you've looked at is true and that the people are, you know, honest and it happened, or whether I think it's not true and that they're faking it, or whether I just can't make up my mind because there's not enough information. And so you have to put it into one of those three boxes, right? Because all those things happen out there. Do you want to put that down, Georgia? Because that's going to be really annoying if you guys fight with that all the time. Okay, so the first thing then is when we look at this stuff, good idea. When we look at this stuff, we want to make sure that we're not biased. Now, do you know what bias is? Have you ever B-I-A-S? Do you know what that means? No? Don't know what bias is? Okay, well, what bias is you make an opinion about what someone's saying or whether you like them purely based on how they look or how they sound, nothing else. So, for example, if you like the way someone looks or sounds, you might be more likely to agree with them or think they're telling the truth. Or if you don't like the way they sound or you think they look a bit weird, you might be more likely to think they're not telling the truth or they're lying. Now, do you think that's true or not? Do you think that happens?
Yes.
I think it happens very often.
That's believable, okay? Now, the reason I say that is that when you look at these examples, some of these people you might think, oh, that person looks like a weirdo or wacko, they're probably lying, but they might not be lying. Or someone else you think, oh, they look like a nice person.
It's my drink.
Well, like it might be me, right?
It.
So say I told you something and I said, I believe this. Now, because you might think that I'm a nice guy, you might think, oh, yeah.
You're a nice guy, you're our grandfather.
Yeah, so therefore you might be more likely to believe me.
Sometimes you're a bit silly, but...
What? And you're never silly, Ollie?
Oh, I take that offensively.
Anyway, so the point is, and they say this in court, you know, when you're a juror or something in court, you have to decide whether someone's murdered somebody or something. Often they say, now you need to be careful not to be biased, not to, you know, judge whether you think that person is guilty of being the murderer or not just because you don't like the look of them, or because you do like the look of them, you shouldn't say you don't think they did. So that's the whole point of the bias thing, right? So we've got to try and do this without any bias. Are we good about that? Mm-hmm. Okay, now here's some examples. Now, in no particular order, some of these examples, as I say, I think are probably true. You can never say 100% for sure. Others I think are probably untrue. Again, you never know. And some I'm just not sure. Okay, are we ready to go?
Fuxian Lake, Yunnan Province, China, 1992.
China, you're going to China, right?
Expert diver Geng Wei descends into this remote lake and discovers a surprising phenomenon. The bottom is littered with hand-carved flagstones and other stone relics. The mysterious stones lie scattered on the bottom of China's second deepest freshwater lake, which covers an area of 100 square miles with a depth of 509 feet. What he saw was quite extraordinary. Hand-dressed flagstones, roads, buildings, and and it's as if he discovered an underwater city. The clearest evidence of dwellings at the bottom of a lake. It was built when there wasn't a lake. And that would mean that we're talking about a time before the last ice age, which would bring the story of Fujian Lake way more into the remote past than what we're being told. I have to wonder, did some kind of advanced civilization exist at one time beneath Fujian Lake? Is it possible that an extraterrestrial base is located deep underwater? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes and suggest USOs, or unidentified submersible objects, have been well chronicled in ancient Chinese texts.
According to Chen Yang Fuzi, a book written during the reign of Emperor Daoguang in the Qing dynasty, a horse-like monster lived in the lake.
Oh, that's just an impression of it. They're showing us what these people
see. It's a creature that could actually take to the skies. This suggests it may have been part USO, part UFO. That's to say, an underwater submersible object and also an unidentified flying object.
October 24th, 1991. A local fisherman named Zhang Yuxiang was fishing on Fujian Lake during a clear and tranquil day when a dense fog suddenly rolled across the vast body of water.
In 1991, Zhang Yuxiang, a fisherman, was at Fujian Lake when he encountered a UFO. Now, this strange craft actually emerged from the waters of the lake. He described it as a shining disc. This UFO was so close and so powerful that it actually tossed the boat around. And then rapidly, this craft just disappeared up into the sky. Lake Foshan is clearly an area where there have been many strange events over the years.
Okay.
I don't believe that.
I kind of believe the underwater city.
Yeah, but I don't believe the
I believe the UFO bit.
So, Georgie, you don't believe any of it, or just the...
I just believe the underwater bit, but nothing.
And I believe the underwater bit and the whole thing.
So you think it's quite believable that there was a UFO down there that flew out of the water and...
Well, because the guy would have had to stand up to them and said that a few years ago I was standing on this Fujian Lake and I saw a UFO fly by.
Okay, that's fair enough. Now, my opinion is that this is one of the ones that I'm just not sure. Like you, the underwater stuff's pretty obvious because they had film of that. But the pictures of the video of the thing flying were something that someone had made up based on what they were told. So we weren't actually looking at footage of the thing flying.
So you don't know if it is real.
So someone might have made that up, of course, yeah. And it does sound a bit hard to believe. But by the same token, you never know. So I'm sort of in the middle with that. I don't really know for sure. Okay, so that's one example.
Next one.
So let's see what you think about this one.
Welcome back. Thank you, Gear Company. Now, do you believe in UFOs or unidentified flying objects? Well, many Australians do, and none more strongly than people who were confronted by something very strange in suburban Melbourne 50 years ago.
So these people were about your age, and there was about 200 kids about your age.
In 1966, and more than 200 students and a dozen teachers at 2 Melbourne schools are sure they've just had a close encounter. This is Australia's most famous UFO sighting. The object stayed on the ground for more than 20 minutes, then took off rapidly, and some say it was buzzed by 5 aircraft. The school children were warned never to speak of it, authorities telling them that flying saucers just don't exist. But 50 years later, witnesses insist they know exactly what they saw. In incredible. It was called the Westall Incident, and joining us now, three of the people who were there when they were school children all those years ago. In Melbourne, Joy Clark and Terry Peck, and in Brisbane, Jackie Argent, and also with us in Canberra, principal researcher for this UFO incident, Shane Ryan. Good morning to all of you, and thanks for joining us. Let's begin with Joy and Terry in Melbourne. Can you tell us what you saw?
Yes, Natasha. I was out playing cricket on the oval at the time, and we noticed these three craft hovering above the school, which was a bit unusual. They definitely weren't aircraft. And then after about 10 minutes, we saw one go down into an area behind our school called the Grange, where we used to do our cross-country runs. So being a little bit of a rebel, as I was at school, I was one of the first to run through and jump over the fence and arrive at the Grange, and it was on the ground in front of me. The other two girls had arrived before me, and one was hysterical, Tanya, and the other girl had fainted. So I just looked at it, and after a few minutes it just raised up above me, probably to about 12 feet, turned on its side and went zoom straight up into the air and disappeared almost instantly. And there were two other craft in the air at the time.
Joy, did you see something similar, and what were you thinking it was at that stage? Were you convinced it was a UFO?
I didn't know what it was.
Yes, definitely a UFO. I was actually in science class, and we had a student had rung in and flung the door open and said, Mr. Greenwood, there's things in the sky, there's flying saucers in the sky. So we all ran down the corridor and out onto the oval, and yes, there were flying saucers in the sky. I saw three of them, but it took me quite a while to sort of comprehend what I was looking at, because I'd never seen anything like that before.
Jackie, it's quite intriguing. Did you also see those flying saucers?
I saw a flying saucer. I don't recall there being more than one. But we were down the back. I was down the back of the oval with Tanya when we noticed it in the sky. It did some manoeuvres which were very strange, which is why our attention was drawn to it in the first place. And then it came down over the Grange. We could see it coming down, so we took off after it. Tanya actually reached the craft, I believe. I didn't, because she came back screaming towards me, and then I ran back with her to the school. She got taken away in an ambulance, and that was the last time I saw her.
And can you tell us a bit more about these craft? What colour were they? How big were they? Did they actually land, or were they just hovering above the ground?
The craft I saw was silver in colour. It was round. It did come down on the ground. Even though I didn't see it on the ground, I saw the marks that it left later on that day. It could move incredibly fast, and it could also appear to stand still. When it took off from the other aircraft that were buzzing it, it made them look as though they were at standstill.
Right. And Shane, the skeptics have dismissed the event as just the product of the fertile imagination of children. What's your response to that?
Some skeptics have, and there are other skeptics, I think, who take a more serious look at a story like this, a story which has so much witness testimony. I'd like to begin by paying tribute to Joy and Terry and Jackie and all the other witnesses who have been brave enough to come forward and talk about this story. 96 witnesses so far have been happy to talk to me about the flying saucer that they saw. 147 people have come forward and spoken to me about the circles in the paddocks that were left behind by the flying saucer. So if you just look at those numbers alone, you realise we're looking at something pretty important. Now, remember, when we talk about UFOs...
Okay, so what do you think of that story?
Well,
maybe true, maybe, probably
yes,
not true.
I don't believe it.
Well, because there was a lot of witnesses. And also, even one of the teachers or principal even said.
And so you think it's unlikely that they're all lying?
But that isn't the principal.
Well, anyway, yes, I think
That's
it's
like
real.
a head of some sort of problem-solving thing.
Yeah. So what do you think, Georgia? Do you think you believe them, or do you think they're all making it up, or dreaming, or something, or what?
I don't believe them.
Don't believe them? What, you think they were all just dreaming or made it up?
Yeah, I don't. No.
All of them?
All of them couldn't be dreaming.
There were like 200 people that all said that they saw it. They were all dreaming.
The same dream.
The girl with the black hair there, she makes it sound real, but none of the others just like sound like they're making it up on the way.
And they all kind of made up the same story. Okay, but you believe them, Molly, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, okay, well, my opinion is this is one of the more believable ones because there were lots of people all saying the same thing, not just one example. It's very hard to believe that they would have all just made up the same story or imagined the same story, and especially since there were just so many of them. And also, people saw marks on the ground afterwards. So, for me, it's quite a believable one, but you can never say 100% sure, but I quite believe that one.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Now, as I was explaining, this next story, folks, is quite an unusual one. Some people might think it sounds like a bit of a B-grade movie, but my guests here believe it is true. They are university-educated professionals running a successful business. They come from Grafton, and they just happen to have spent time inside an alien spaceship when they were kidnapped by extraterrestrials. As I introduce to you, Scott and Wendy Longley.
Inside an alien spaceship?
No.
Let's see what they say.
It is a most extraordinary story. It's heartfelt for you. Let's start, Scott. It was March this year. You were driving on a road in New South Wales near Casino with your family. What happened with your UFO experience?
All right, it was on the 16th of March of last month. We were travelling from Lismore. We were going home to Grafton. We came upon a small town called Casino. 2.5 k's prior to Casino, I saw these two strong bright lights at the back of the vehicle, and apparently at the same time my wife saw some strange lights in the front of the vehicle. There was some time after that did we speak about these lights.
It's an old story.
Upon arriving home in Grafton, it was 45 minutes later than a normal trip.
You took 45 minutes longer to get home than you normally would.
That's right. In the morning...
So you at this stage don't know anything, all you remember are these strong lights in the back and in the front.
That's correct.
Okay, in the morning?
Right. In the morning, we all developed colds. My son had long strands of dry mucus from his nose with blood, 4 long strands. I had a very, very large blister on my right big toe. I had a marking at the back of my neck. My wife had sore ovaries. She was very sore in her stomach. This is all on the Sunday. On the Wednesday afternoon in our local paper, there was an article about UFO sightings excuse me, over Grafton on that Saturday night. And with this person's phone number, his name and phone number. And upon phoning him up, he came around to our place.
And what happened then, Wendy?
He suggested that we get some hypnotherapy done to try and recall the lost time.
Because you don't remember anything at this stage, you're just not feeling well, colds, etc. So, and you've lost 45 minutes. When you underwent hypnotherapy, what did you discover, Wendy?
We discovered that we'd been picked up, that the car had been taken to the side of the road, and my husband was taken out of the car by 2 aliens, and then I was taken out of the car by 2 more, and my daughter and I were carried off to a field. Scott was laid down behind the car and had his toe inspected.
I'd go to the back of the vehicle, they laid me down on my stomach, they examined, they put something into the back of my neck with a silver light staple gun. They turned me around, they inserted something into my right big toe, and then all of a sudden I'm in the spacecraft.
So you went into the spacecraft.
That's right.
All this was discovered under hypnotherapy.
Under hypnotherapy.
So they did tests and experimented on you.
Mm-hmm.
What did they look like?
All right. You've probably got your norm of your UFOs is your 5 to 6 foot tall UFO being...
So we've got some photographs. Was it like this?
Not so much. The eyes were more horizontal, very similar to that. To me, on the third hypnotherapy, now that one to me is very, very evil. Right?
And you actually saw this figure?
Yeah.
Okay, what did the spaceship look like? You went into the spaceship?
Right. I went into the spaceship. I went under 3 hypnotherapies, and I went under my 4th this morning to know.
It doesn't look like that one? No. Okay. Did it look like this next photograph that we've got coming up? Do you remember the details of the spaceship?
Oh, very plain, yes.
Like a cliched saucer, you know, circular and very large and low.
Do you remember being in it as well, Wendy?
I do. And just lying on a table with faces looking over me, and Scott saw the same figures, like hockey mask figures, if you can imagine the hockey mask, and nasty looking equipment.
How did they communicate with you?
I didn't remember any communication, but Scott was telling me about telepathy.
So they communicated telepathically?
The first time they spoke to me was outside the vehicle, and they said to me that we're very lucky people, very nice people, and be kind to your neighbour. I think they know that my neighbour and I argue a lot, maybe. And in the spacecraft, they inserted this long rod through my right eye, and they said that you will feel some pain, and I said, no, I'm not. That was very discomfort. There was a lot of discomfort. They again inserted something into my right big toe.
Now this photograph we've got up there, explain.
Right. The one on the top left, very, very friendly. The one on the top right, he carried us out of the car, or carried me out of the vehicle. The one in the bottom left was the moth type, very friendly. The one in the bottom middle, he inserted it right into my eye, and the one on the right I call Mr. Ant.
Okay.
Okay, that's enough of that one. So what do we think of that one, guys?
Untrue.
Don't believe him?
Well, it seems pretty believable, but then at the same time it isn't.
So you're in the middle, not too sure?
I mean, he got something inserted in his toe and his eye, apparently. And she got,
her ovaries, I think she said, were sore or something.
Something, yeah, her stomach.
So, not sure in the middle?
It's a no from me, because, I mean, seriously, he would get picked up by darn aliens. And they said there was so many types in just one ship. And if it was big, how could it be they said it was behind their car. Right behind, they couldn't see it, so I really don't believe them.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think I'm probably more on the side of not believing them. It does seem pretty weird, and there was no other people witnessing it, no one else to say that they saw it as well, which means it just...
Wasn't there?
Pardon? Oh, sorry, yeah, there was a kid in the cart, that's true. But it is possible that they all made it up or something, but I mean, it is possible that it's true as well, but I think it's more likely them not being sure or being confused.
Devil's advocate, it's very hard for people to come forward and then have everybody doubt them like they're crazy.
Well, yeah.
You wouldn't put yourself through that.
So would you, if you had to give it a probability of true, what would you say?
I believe they believe it happened.
You believe they believe it happened, but do you think it actually did happen?
Oh. Well, I've heard weirder shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, like Meryl, see, I believe that they think it happened, perhaps, but I'm not sure that it really did happen. So that's one of those ones that's a bit iffy. And Ollie's a no, so that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Now, next one. Now this is there's two station channels I'm going to show you. These next two are people that run YouTube channels like you do and like I do, and basically what happens is that people send in videos that they've seen. If they see a UFO and they take a video or a picture of it, they send it in to these people and then they put it up on their channel. So that's what their channel is, a collection of things that people have sent to them. And so there's a whole lot of different examples. Every few days both these people have new videos coming up, and so the idea is, do we think that this is legit or not?
Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look at our footage over here. Look at this, UFO sightings. Apparently taking over in the mountains over here somewhere. This footage was just sent in to us, brand new footage. We received it January 12, 2020. And look at this object over here. Definitely seen something like this before. Object looks like it's actually maneuvering. It's kind of changing shape. Look at that. And then there's some kind of light or something like that in the back over there. You can see it blinking on the right. Definitely some interesting footage over here. This clip was sent in to us anonymously, so unfortunately we don't have too much to go on. And this is all according to the source that sent in this footage. They reached out to us on Facebook, but didn't give us too much information. It's time for our clip of the day. Check this thing out. UFO sightings, Russia, 2017.
No.
This is very
What do you think of that one,
footage over here. The quality's kind of bad.
A fake one?
Not sure.
What do you think, Georgia, of this one?
Cell phone or what's going on?
They just cut it out from somewhere and put it there.
This footage, you know, it's kind of blurry a little bit, and then this thing is just floating across. Apparently, this is an abandoned company. This company has been abandoned, according to what the source is saying. And these guys just come out over UFO sightings in the desert. Look at this. This footage comes to us from the Middle East, according to the source. They claim that this object over here, look at that. This thing is huge, according to the source. This possibly could be some kind of mothership or something like that.
Wow.
This footage was sent in to us.
No.
Apparently it was filmed in Egypt. And this is all according to the source.
Looks fake.
But the source did not leave a name.
Okay, so what do we think about that?
Hell no.
Fake.
Actually, yes. But I can see that there's actually a shadow there.
Well, you can still put a fake shadow in. If you,
no.
If you're clever with your video stuff, you can put a fake shadow in as well. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I reckon. Oh, you might have turned it off.
Some sort of animation.
Still rolling.
Oh no, still going. Yeah, so I agree. I think that this is rubbish. This channel, and that it's not real. But you can never be sure. I never like to say 100% because it's possible, but I think most likely it's not. Now here's another channel, same idea, but a totally different person that gets his videos from different people, and see what you think about this guy's channel. Wow.
Middle.
Looks like some sort of water fountain.
Yeah, but do you think it's a real UFO or someone's just faked it?
Actually, I think some a bit in the middle.
In the middle of that one?
Because I know that UFOs are unidentified, and that's pretty unidentified.
Yeah.
That's a strange shape.
Yeah. Now this one is interesting because what this is, I'll just explain it to you. This is actually taken from a fighter jet plane that they have radar that they use on their plane to find other planes and things that they think are dangerous. And this is actually footage from the jet fighter plane, and it's actually infrared footage, which means that it's not actually like a normal video. It just looks at the heat coming from something, because sometimes things are hard to see, but you can always tell whether they're hot or cold. So it's called an infrared footage, and it actually comes from the fighter jet. That's what's different about this one. Okay, so off we go.
That could just be another plane.
You think it's a plane? Could be.
I think it's just another plane. There's no.
It's a funny shape though for a plane, do you reckon?
But it still could be something else. Yeah, I'm not really sure that that's real.
It is pretty weird. But do you think it's fake, or do you think it's a real video but of a plane or something?
Fake.
You think it's totally fake? Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen this one. That's a fake.
You reckon that one's fake? Just doesn't look right?
Yeah, it's not right.
Did this come with the charger that's like magnetic?
What about this one, eh?
Did that come with that sort of?
No, I changed the charge, I think.
I don't really think that's believable. That could just be anything out of space.
So this is people who are in a plane and they're taking video out of the plane window while they're flying along?
So that could just be
there could be someone that's like skydiving.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think a skydive would be that big.
Yeah. So that's pretty weird. So you're not sure, Ollie?
I'm not sure. There are heaps of these. Next.
Well, for me, this guy, that first channel, I think they're all fake. I think that guy probably makes them up himself. They're so, crappy, and it looks like he's just done them on his computer, and they all look pretty lame. This one, because they all come from different people, some of them look better than others. And I think, for example, that one that was taken from the fighter jet, I think was a genuine video. I'm not sure whether it was a UFO or whether it was a proper plane, but I think that was genuine because it was like an infrared thing from a fighter jet. So some of them I think are probably real and some of them probably aren't. Now, let's have a look and see what the actual, government and the Navy and people like that say about all this stuff.
Obviously, these are billion-dollar assets, and if the official position of the most powerful navy in the world is, frankly, little more than we don't know what this is, I don't think that's good enough.
Both of us, both airplanes, see a disturbance in the water and a white 40-foot-long tic-tac shaped object just hovering above the water, going forward, back, left, right. There's no rotor wash, there's no wings, nothing. And as I get within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerates to the south in about 2 seconds and disappears. This was extremely abrupt, like a ping pong ball bouncing off a wall. The ability to hover over the water and then start a vertical climb from basically zero up towards about 12,000 feet and then accelerate in less than 2 seconds and disappear is something I had never seen in my life. I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
We are well beyond right now establishing whether or not these things exist. It is an absolute fact that they are there. There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
It's hard to understand, how do these vehicles maintain lift? How are they propelled? There are no wing surfaces, there's no exhaust. So there's nothing that we're familiar with that we've deployed in the air that has a power source other than chemical energy like fuel. These are so radically different than anything we're familiar with, and their performance is so advanced and so sophisticated, it's frankly just baffling.
So is it fair to boil it down to two possibilities? Either another country has leapfrogged the United States in technology, or extraterrestrial?
Those are the leading hypotheses, yes.
My point. The Pentagon has confirmed the existence of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program that studied UFOs, and they released video.
This is Navy jet pilot video again.
For 8 years, Lou Elizondo ran a secret UFO investigation for the U.S. military, but in 2017, he quit in protest.
I put my entire future on the line because I believe in what I believe in.
Now he's joined an elite group of former government insiders. Their mission: reveal what they say is the truth about UFOs.
U.S. airspace is being violated by vehicles of unknown origin with advanced capabilities.
This is real, and we're going to get to the bottom of it.
If people knew these unidentified vehicles are operating within minutes of the DC area, they would say, excuse me, isn't this something we ought to pay attention to?
The pilots wondered if their new radar system was malfunctioning until they saw one of the unidentified objects up close.
They've been seeing these things for 2 months. Multiple people have seen them, multiple people have tracked them. You get one that splits a section, enough to send out your mishap report to the safety center.
I want to do that.
So you think these pilots are lying, or they're just imagining it?
I actually want to have
no investigation, no nothing.
So you think they're making it up? Some are seeing one type of thing, and others are seeing another type of thing on different days. So they're not all the same thing. What about you, Ollie? What do you think of the pilot stories?
I mean, I don't really believe because his colleague could have been lying at any time.
No, they can't because they've got their radar and evidence.
That radar is from their plane. That's the plane's radar.
To the ship.
U.S. airspace is being violated by vehicles of unknown origin with advanced capabilities.
The investigation has uncovered 2 astonishing encounters between UFOs and U.S. Navy carrier strike groups, years apart.
We were all clamoring to get on the radio. Do you see in the water that?
If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I don't know if I would have believed it either.
In each case, the Navy carriers were nuclear powered.
Is that why these things might be interested in carrier groups?
For decades, UFOs have allegedly been hovering near nuclear assets in the American heartland.
It shot straight up in the air and was gone in a second.
And overseas.
But the beams went down into the weapons storage area. And I'm thinking, oh my God.
Is there a connection between the appearance of these unidentified craft and America's most powerful weapons?
So they're saying that the UFOs turn up around the nuclear sites and the missile sites and things.
Probably because they might want the missiles and nuclear stuff, but probably because those aliens haven't discovered it.
Maybe.
They want to know what's so powerful about it and how they can use it against them.
Yep.
Against all their enemies.
Yep.
Like the men on the moon.
That's right, so they're worried about it. So anyway, let's have a look at this one. Here's another guy. We're nearly at the end. This is another...
They might just maybe trying to keep us safe.
Well, that's right. See, in fact, that's what I was going to ask you at the end is, if they are real, what do you think their reasons for being here are? And the idea of trying to keep us safe is one of the ideas that people have, because they never seem to cause us any trouble, but they do things like shut down the nuclear sites, the missile sites, stop them from working, things like that. So, but they don't actually break them or blow them up or do anything. They just stop them working, and then they let them start working again.
Maybe because they're just trying to keep us safe.
Maybe that's one of the ideas. I don't know.
Maybe they're really trying to help us.
Maybe that's what a lot of people think, actually.
I mean, they would probably have a lot of advanced technology.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one of the ideas is that they are actually trying to help us, because even though they've been seen for so long, none of them have actually really caused us any harm.
Here with more former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Christopher Mellon. Christopher, do you believe the UFOs exist?
We know that UFOs exist. This is not no longer an issue. The Navy itself has publicly acknowledged the fact that they exist. And Navy pilots, active duty pilots, have gone on the record in the New York Times acknowledging the fact that they exist. So the issue now is, why are they here? Where are they coming from? And what is the technology behind these devices that we're observing?
Are there indications that these unidentified flying objects are doing things that this world is not capable of?
There are indications, actually. The Nimitz incident, a famous example of this, which was well documented by multiple radars, multiple pilots in broad daylight. That vehicle demonstrated speeds in excess of 5,000 miles an hour. It was able to hover 50 feet above the ocean after descending from above 80,000 feet. So the pilots who are observing these craft are absolutely mystified, and that comes through clearly in their public statements.
The bottom line, what do you think this was?
I believe, as do the other folks that were on the flight, that when we visually saw it, that it was something not from this world.
It's hard to understand, how do these vehicles maintain lift? How are they propelled? There are no wing surfaces, there's no exhaust. So there's nothing that we're familiar with that we've deployed in the air that has a power source other than chemical energy like fuel. These are so radically different than anything we're familiar with, and their performance is so advanced and so sophisticated. It's frankly just baffling.
So is it fair to boil it down to two possibilities? Either another country has leapfrogged the United States in technology, or extraterrestrial?
Those are the leading hypotheses, yes.
It turns out former U.S. Senator Harry Reid of Nevada put together a multi-million-dollar investigation into the Pentagon's UFO files, and it included a real-life Fox Mulder tasked with cataloging not just those documents related to UFO reports, but also to collect actual debris. In fact, a company was hired to modify buildings in Las Vegas to store metal alloys and other materials that were reportedly from sites where these unexplained events happened.
Do you also believe that UFOs have come to Earth?
There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence. And I spent millions and millions. I probably spent more as an individual than anybody else in the United States has ever spent on this subject.
Is it risky for you to say, in public that you believe in UFOs and aliens?
I don't care.
You don't worry that some people will say that you hear that guy, he sounds like he's crazy?
I don't care.
Why not?
It's not going to make a difference. It's not going to change reality of what I know.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one last question. Do you believe, based on your decade of serving in the U.S. government on this question, that the U.S. government has in its possession any material from one of these aircrafts?
I do, yes.
Now just listen to this again, what he's asking, because this is quite important, this last bit.
You think the U.S. government has debris from a UFO in its possession right now?
Unfortunately, Tucker, I really have to be careful of my NDA. I really can't go into a lot of more detail than that.
Okay.
But simply put, yes.
Okay, so that guy who actually worked for the government, and his job was to look for not extraterrestrial, but threats in the sky that couldn't be identified, and determine whether or not they were a problem. He says that he, having worked for the government, believes that they've got debris from alien spacecraft. What do you think of that? No, think he's lying? What do you think?
I really don't think so.
You don't think they've got bits from alien spacecraft?
I'm sort of in the middle because he's got a very important job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're in the middle. What do you think, Meryl? Do you think they might have debris from alien spacecraft?
I think absolutely they do. And having listened to this man previously, I absolutely believe everything he says.
Yeah, no, I agree too. I've seen lots of evidence to support what he's saying, particularly since he worked for the government for a long time.
Doing that particular job.
Yeah, now here's the final one. Based on this idea that they've actually got debris, have a look at this last video, because this is one of the most...
you believe in UFOs?
Yep.
So let's have a look at this last one. This is really... Now, this guy here is a scientist who was employed by the government to go and work on a secret project for the government. He didn't know what that secret project was, but he was just a scientist that was good at making rockets and physics and science stuff, and the government asked him if he wanted to come and work for them and work on a secret project. And that's this. He doesn't work there anymore, but this is a little interview with this guy, or part of an interview with this guy. His name's Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar. Have a look at this. He's quite famous because of all this.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
When did things get weird?
Listen.
When did you realize, like at what point in time did you say, hey, this is not normal work? Like, this doesn't even seem like it's from this planet.
That, I can't tell you what day that occurred on, because so much time has gone by, the days have kind of fused into one, and I can't separate the days.
Was it a slow burn, or was there a moment of recognition?
Well, the first inkling I had was when I came in. There's this facility that is at S4. It's in the side of a mountain. And normally we had pulled in with the bus and gone around the front through a normal double door. This time that I went in, there were hangar doors open. I went into the hangar door, and in the hangar door was the disc, the flying saucer that I worked on. I saw it sitting there, and we walked by it. It had a little American flag stuck on the side, and I thought, oh my God, this finally explains all the flying saucer stories. This is just an advanced fighter, and this is fucking hilarious.
Right.
So I went by, I slid my hand alongside it. I got reprimanded immediately for touching the thing. And there was a guy, an armed guard, that followed us in and just said, keep your eyes forward and your hands at your side and just walk in the door. So that was the first time I had seen anything that was weird. It was some time later that I was introduced to my lab partner, Barry. And we had some of the subcomponents of the craft in the lab. And Barry was very anxious to get a new lab partner. So he was very talkative and couldn't wait to show me different things. And it was in the demonstration of the reactor working where it caught my attention to where this is technology that doesn't even exist. So, I mean, that was the first time I knew that this is really something different.
What was it? And what was it? What was it about this reactor that made you think that it didn't exist technologically?
Well, it was I actually have to back up because there were some briefings that I read before that certainly gave me the impression that this was going to be a weird job, but this was the first hands-on thing. This was a small reactor about the size of a hemisphere, about the size of a basketball, on a metal plate, and when it was running, it produced a gravitational field of its own. Now, this is something that we can't do. We can't produce any gravity. The only way we get gravity is from large quantities of mass. But there's no machine we can have that turns on that makes gravity, like you can turn on an electromagnet and it makes a magnetic field. We can't make a gravitational field. Anyway, this device was producing that. And Barry said, almost like he was bragging, go ahead, try and touch the sphere. And I couldn't. It pushed my hands away, just like two like poles of a magnet. So that was...
so like when you take two magnets and try to press them together and they push against each other?
Yeah, that kind of cushion feeling, but you can't get them together. The closer you put them, the more they push. But
and you felt that physically
with my hand? Yeah. Now there's nothing that does that, and that immediately caught my attention. Going, wow, this is something else.
What was your thought? Like when you felt that and you knew that there was nothing that you were aware of that could produce
then
this?
that connected me to the briefings that I read on the first day at S4 was that everything that I had read was apparently accurate.
Yeah.
And what were you reading?
I read, it was kind of an overview. This project was to back engineer the alien craft, and specifically it was to try and back engineer and see if we can duplicate the technology with available materials.
How did they turn it on?
The reactor?
Yeah.
The reactor can be turned on or turned off in a lot of different ways. The way Barry showed me, the hemisphere is removed. There's a small tower in the middle. When you put the hemisphere on, the reactor activates. The reactor...
Okay, that'll do. So this guy is talking about working on spacecraft that the Air Force has, trying to figure out how they work so that we can do something similar. Do you reckon he's lying, telling the truth, dreaming? What do you reckon? What do you think,
I think he's telling the truth because he's a really smart man and he's really famous.
Hmm. So you think he's telling the truth?
Yeah.
What do you think, Georgia?
No.
You think he's lying or making it up or dreaming or something?
Making it up.
Making it all up. Okay.
Because he keeps saying, if he knew the whole thing properly, then he wouldn't be